Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and throw the saddle on there. One thing I like to make sure that, on all our horses, this is an older show horse, that she's pretty broke. I like to just kind of throw the saddle up there. I think that what happens is that if you try to sneak around and always ease the saddle on them, they always kind of get a little suspicious of what's going to happen, and they always get a little bit paranoid. So for me, it always works better. And what I've learned since I'm kind of smaller and not all that tall, when you have to saddle a bunch of big horses, the easiest thing for me is I'm going to grab the horn, right through the gullet, and then I'm going to do it I'm going to hold my hand on the side, and I'm going to do it in one motion. So I go up and on. So now the saddle will be on there, and if I need to make any adjustments, we can adjust it. Now, one thing I want to show you is that whenever the saddle pad is on, when we first put the pad on, if you come up here in the front, and you'll see that this is pulled down on her withers, and that'll create a hot spot. So once we have the saddle on, the first thing I want to do is stick my hand under this pad, and I'm going to lift this pad up and pull it up into the gullet of the saddle so that it's got room underneath the withers. And I want to try to get just as much saddle pad in front as I do behind, and everything's going to kind of line up that direction. So if I need to pull my pad back a little bit, I can always slide it back. But if I'm going to have to adjust it forward, what I'm going to do is make sure I pull it really far forward. So I'm going to go up here and then pull it back. And again, it's so that hair is going to lay flat. Before we go ahead and cinch it up, we'll make sure our saddle pad is up in the gullet. And we're going to be sure that I always like to put this onside stirrup up so I have a little bit of room to work. And I'm just going to go ahead and ease around her here. And we're going to drop our front and rear cinch, and I'm going to let it kind of hang down. And you have an idea, depending on how your horse is that you want to make sure your rings are going to hang evenly between her legs, so we can just kind of test around it here and make sure it's good. Now you want to make sure your saddle's not too far forward so that the girth is not sitting up underneath, because that's too far forward and you don't want it too far back. You can see there's kind of a little bit of a groove right here, and that's about right where you want the it's going to be about a hand or so back. That's where you want that girth to hang. So we're going to drop it down there and make sure everything's good. Everything's good that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and go around her. You can go around the front or the back, but since she's in the cross ties, it's easier to go around. Okay. Now, a little bonus tip that makes it easier from when we saddled previously is that we're going to take our billet here, or our latigo, and I'm just going to double it up behind. So this way, whenever I reach under, make sure there's no dirt or anything. I can take the end of my latigo, run it through, and when I pull, now everything's up off the ground. We're going to go ahead and run it through here. You may have to take it a time or two, depending on your horse. Make sure everything's saddled up. So I can look and I see that I don't have any more holes, so I've got to take 2 wraps. So we just go ahead and take 2 wraps. Now, I don't want to try and cut my horse in half when I first saddle up, so I'm going to leave it nice and snug enough that she's not going to buck it off. And just kind of, when I get out to the arena, I'm going to go ahead and I'll tighten it up from there. I'm going to grab my rear cinch, and I'm going to pull it up here a little bit. I'm not trying to cut them in half. I just want to make sure that it's not hanging down. If it hangs down too low, if they happen to kick it a fly, or they do anything like that, there's a good chance that they could hang that foot up in this rear cinch. So we want to make sure that's up high enough that we don't have an issue. So we've got everything kind of lined out how we need it, so we can head out to the arena. And when we get out there, then we'll go ahead and snug this saddle up the rest of the way. And then if the saddle has shifted just a little bit, we can readjust it.